let's just talk about some of the major things that can cause higher inflammation. Number one being food sensitivities. So food sensitivities can be really challenging to identify and challenging to overcome as well. So again, this could be a whole podcast, but some of the major sensitivities that people seem to develop inflammation from would be gluten, because it's a big protein. It's not the same protein as our ancestors were used to ingesting in their grains 100 plus years ago. And it's been shown in many clinical studies shown to cause micro tears in the gut lining. So I tell all my students, you're better off without it. Even if you don't have celiac disease per se, most people have some sort of gluten sensitivity, including myself. I feel way better. I have been gluten-free for almost 7 years now, unless I've been accidentally exposed to it. But I feel so much better without it. And most of the foods that contain gluten are processed foods that you want to stay away from. Anyway, so that's a big one. Seed oils are very, very inflammatory. So again, could do a whole podcast on this, but seed oils such as canola, corn, safflower, sunflower, soybean, rice bran, I'm forgetting a couple of them, but those are the seed oils, the major seed oils that cause inflammation in the body. So removing those can be very beneficial. There are lots of things. Soybean, another one, in any form, a lot of grains, nightshades, oxalates. A lot of people have sensitivities to certain foods. So again, it can be challenging to identify these. I know myself, I'm very sensitive to gluten. I'm sensitive to corn, unless I do okay with organic corn that's non-GMO. And oats are another thing that just for my personal body cause me bloating and inflammation. I can feel it in my body. I can like see it on my face if I ingest these foods over the course of several days. So anyway, that is food sensitivities for me, but writing things down and identifying any symptoms can be helpful, at least for a couple of weeks. And sometimes your symptoms may not show up until 3 days after you've ingested a food. So for instance, you might get a headache a couple of days after you've been exposed to a food you're sensitive to, or you get bloated the next day. Those are just a couple of examples. Or you get inflammation in your skin, you break out, you have acne. That can be, a day to 3 days after you've ingested a food. So that's a big one. So try to pinpoint any food sensitivities that might be harmful in your body. Hormones being another big source of inflammation. I've talked about insulin. When insulin levels are too high and you have insulin resistance, that causes inflammation. And of course, high levels of cortisol. When you've been under chronic stress day after day, you've had lots of stressful events in your life, that's another indication of high inflammation. And just asking those adrenal issues to constantly pump out cortisol can cause issues as well. So those can be major signs of inflammation. Not having healthy detoxification. So if your gallbladder is not working well, if your liver is not working well, all of those things can drive up inflammation. Environmental toxins can drive up inflammation, lots and lots of things. Another thing that you want to be aware of is if your vitamin D level is very low, you can supplement with vitamin D3K2, and that helps to lower inflammation in the body, because low vitamin D is just, again, vitamin D is needed for so many things: good sleep, detoxification, even digestion. It's helpful for that. It almost behaves more like a hormone than it does a vitamin. So making sure that you have adequate levels of vitamin D and supplementing with vitamin D3K2 can be helpful. So those are some of the primary drivers of inflammation.